Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. I am Kevin Armstrong, joined by Peter Baracchini and Alex Hobson. We are all contributors to the Hockey Writers. Make sure you head over to thehockeywriters.com to check out our material. Follow us on all your favorite social media channels, the Hockey Writers. And hey, why don't you subscribe and like this YouTube channel? And also follow us on your favorite podcast networks. Okay, I paid the bills that way. So let's get into it, guys. We weren't expecting to be here talking about this right now. We've been forced to write articles we didn't think we were going to be writing for a while, at least. The Leafs are obviously out of it, in case you've been under a rock. And everyone's in shock. If you watched the interviews, the exit interviews of all the players and the coaches, you just can't beat up on the guys anymore. They've beat up on themselves enough. Up 3-1 against Montreal and lost in Game 7. And there's not much more to say, but let's do our own quick postmortem on this. I don't know where to start other than to just say Peter and I both discovered that we both purchased these when the Leafs were up 3-1. And suddenly they're out of the playoffs. So we may want to get together, Peter, and burn these before next season.
Sincere apologies to everyone out in Leafs land right now with that.
Yeah, it was tough. Alex, what were your thoughts? This was the first season in your 15 years of enjoying the Leafs that you've been a hardcore Leaf fan, that it was really there. How are you feeling after the debacle?
Empty. That's how I was feeling. I was feeling empty. I truly thought this was the year that they would, at the very least, shed the first round narrative and make a meaningful and respectful run. But they went and showed that their issues weren't necessarily roster issues. They were mental issues, and they were something that stems from the culture of the team. And it's something that you got to address heading into next season. That's all I really have to say on it. I mean, it was disappointing. I had this sinking feeling in my stomach that we were going to see something like that unfold after they lost Game 5, but I didn't want to be a beacon of negativity. I wanted to hold on to that tiny shred of hope and just have that hope that they would be able to pull it together, but they didn't. And here we are talking about it again. I also want to give a quick shout out to Mel Boyd for being the only member of Montreal and Toronto media who got that prediction right of Habs in 7.
Yeah, right here on the show as well. She said that and stuck out like a sore thumb because everyone figured it was Leafs Oilers going to the second round, and look at us all egg on our face. Peter, I know it was tough for you as well. Where did it go wrong?
Well, I'm just going to say my Habs side of the family, they started ripping me to shreds right away. Ever since Game 5, and it just progressed to the point where it got to Game 7, and the rest is history. But yeah, Alex nailed it on the head. I guess you can say it was a bit of the roster because some of the players that the Maple Leafs did sign to make an impact, maybe not so much on the score sheet, but overall morale, try to motivate them. Joe Thornton was, basically invisible through the playoffs. Wayne Simmonds was noticeable for like 2 to 3 games, went away after that, maybe set the tone physically. You didn't see that at all. And I wrote about it. It's the same old song and dance with this team, going with high hopes, come out disappointed. And like Alex said, I think it's now a mental game for them. They've beaten themselves up. Now I think it's just a time where they use that as motivation. I've said this many years, use it as motivation. Come in next season pissed off and come in with that mentality that you're not a joke anymore. And hopefully that is the case this time around. I've said it for 4 years straight. Going to probably maybe say it maybe 6 or 7 times, but like Keith and Shanahan said, lack of killer instinct. They couldn't finish it off, and that was a major critical issue for them. They got to go out and find players with that attitude.
I will say too, if you guys remember in the playoff preview, I said we've been through so much. If there's something going to go wrong, it's going to be against Montreal. And that was in the back of my head as soon as Game 5 happened. And then it started to come to the front of my head after Game 6. One suggestion I have, and I hate to put it all on him, Morgan Riley's been with the franchise during this whole disaster for the last decade. Maybe it's time for Morgan to go. I love the guy. Thank you for everything you've done with Toronto. He was the only one in the exit interviews that was saying nice things to the media and thanking them for all their help. So maybe he thinks it's time to go too, because it's been a rough ride for Morgan there. And maybe he was the bad omen. I don't know, but something has got to change.
I look at it that Morgan Riley probably had his best 7 games as a Maple Leaf. I know there was quite a bit of talk about him during the year, his inconsistent play, but he rose to the occasion at certain points, even scoring a goal, key goal in game 4 or game 3, I believe. And he was a positive influence for them. 1 year, $5 million. Obviously they're going to talk about it more, see if they can try and get an extension. I don't see how you could probably try and get more than 5. It just isn't going to quite work out with the roster that we have. TJ Brody making the amount that he's making, Jake Muzzin. If Morgan Riley is maybe going to take the same kind of contract, maybe things can work out. But yeah, whether he stays or goes is going to be a really big question mark going from here on out.
Yeah, my comments for Morgan had nothing to do with any of his on ice. It's just he's the only. He's
been through the 2013, all the other collapses and everything. So maybe he wants to change of scenery.
Yeah, which we can't blame him. And during his exit interview, he was wearing YVR on his shirt.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be happy to be in Vancouver or maybe even in Seattle. I don't know. Alex, do you think you bring back Morgan? He's coming back. He's still under 1 more year, but do you keep him for that year or is it time to start shopping him?
I mean, I don't know if I have a concrete answer for that question. I wouldn't necessarily be upset if they brought him back, but at the same time, I think it might be smart for them to shop him this offseason just because, I know Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan all have faith in this group, and they made that very clear in the exit interviews. But at the same time, I also think it could really do this team good to shake it up and make a big splash through the offseason. And I'm not saying that Morgan Riley has to be the guy that falls on the sword, but just because he's the guy who's only got 1 year left and he's the guy he's making $5 million or whatever it is right now, I think it would be smart for them to just do something to shake it up and be like, listen, we can't make this into as much of a trend as this already is. We can't continue this trend. We got to figure it out and just do something to motivate this team heading into next season because yeah, I don't know. This is the emptiest I felt after the elimination game, and I'm kind of losing my train of thought as I go. So I'm just going to stop it before I completely stall it.
Fan reaction. We've talked about social media quite a bit on this show. We try to go on the positive, but obviously there was a lot of negative. The jersey burning that Doug Gilmour put up, that was tough to watch, especially when Doug is talking about it. Can you imagine being him and you're seeing your jersey being burned? But something came to me with when Mike Babcock first came to the Leafs, and this isn't about Mike Babcock, but what he said is that we're going to make Toronto a safe place for players to come back to and play. That has been the case for a number of years in Toronto. The fan base has been pretty patient and waited this out. That all ended this week, in my view, and I'm a little bit concerned about it. If it's going to be this vicious that you're burning jerseys and you're just saying awful things to guys, these are human beings after all. We seem to forget about that. But Alex, I know you're feeling empty on this. What's your view on just how over the top the reaction was?
Well, if we're specifically talking about jersey burning, I've got no respect for anybody that does that. Yeah. Like, I understand the frustration. I understand that, burning a jersey might give you some sort of relief, but realistically, how long is that relief going to last? 5 minutes? Then you'll realize the series is still gone. You didn't do anything to, change the way destiny decided to take its course. And just like Gilmour said in his tweet, it all goes back to the fact that there are people around the world, around the province, around this fan base that would kill to have a jersey. They're not cheap. So if you're disappointed enough in the team to the point where you need to shed some merchandise and you can't see yourself having a Leaf jersey anymore, give it to somebody that wants it. Because burning it is it's a waste of money, it's a waste of resources, and it's just disrespectful in my opinion. So I would never burn a jersey. I strongly encourage everybody to not burn a jersey. I wouldn't want to see anybody do that. If you, like I said, if you have a jersey or you have some sort of merchandise and you're feeling that disappointed in the team that you can't even bring yourself to keep it anymore, give it to someone who wants it. Don't burn it.
Yeah. In the Edmonton area, when things went really, really dark there during the Taylor Hall times, there were a lot of jerseys being thrown on the ice. And anything that gets thrown on the ice in Edmonton, including for hat tricks, they take down and you can go and claim it. Usually no one does, but then they go and they take it to the homeless shelter. All the hats, all the jerseys went to that homeless shelter. So I'm with you on that, Alex. Peter, your thoughts on the burning, but also just how insane the reaction was?
Yeah, I mean, Alex nailed everything on the head. I mean, so many people would kill to have a Maple Leafs jersey right now. To see you go ahead and burn it, like for you wasted your money when someone else could have, appreciated that Doug Gilmour jersey or Austin Matthews, Nylander, Marner, what have you. Yeah, disrespectful, gutless, classic. I mean, you're hanging your jerseys up right now. That's a true fan right there. Those that are burning the jerseys, I don't consider them real fans. It shows where they're. I mean, I understand the fan base is passionate, but you stick to your team no matter what. And real fans see that. If you have to go and burn your jersey, I don't see you as a real fan.
Well, flip it one more way. Remember the jersey burnings of John Tavares' Islanders jersey?
Yeah.
Okay. To me, I didn't like that either. But I could kind of understand it a bit more because those guys felt like you betrayed me. You've been my guy for so long. You betrayed me. It's kind of like getting rid of an ex. And have you ever seen those things where you're supposed to throw it all in the fire? Yeah. But to me, I was like, he did a lot for this franchise to burn his jersey, So was that any more acceptable to burn a jersey of a guy that maybe turned his back on your franchise?
No.
I don't see it that way. No. To me, the Islanders at that point, they were an organization in complete disarray. There were so many issues going on. They didn't have like a stable home arena, and Tavares followed his heart. He wanted to come back home. He wanted to play for the hometown team. I mean, not to compare it to the LeBron James situation where he left Cleveland to go to Miami, but fans were burning his jerseys there. Yeah, I mean, I would be upset. But would I actually burn a LeBron James jersey? Like at that point, he was already the greatest player in basketball at that point. Again, I understand the anger and the hurt, but to take it out on a jersey and a player like that, and then make all the comments that even the Islanders fans made upon his return, it's classless. It really is.
Just to add on to your point there, Peter, you can't tell me. I understand the anger and the frustration from Islanders fans. I can imagine that even, I'm not saying this as if it's going to happen because this isn't a discussion we need to be having after the first round, but say Austin Matthews were to do something similar and follow his heart and go back home to Arizona. Obviously, you can imagine that Leafs Nation would not take it lightly. I'm
absolutely
sure
not. No.
Burning Matthews jerseys as well. But I will never be one of those fans. And I'll tell you right now that when you look at Islanders fans burning John Tavares jerseys, you can't tell me that there's not a single fan among the Islanders fan base that would still kill to have that jersey. Like a 5-year-old kid, maybe he's just getting into the sport. He doesn't care what name's on the back. Give it to him. Don't burn the jersey. That's essentially like taking $200 and ripping it apart in front of a homeless person. Like maybe not quite that extreme, but it's the same concept. Like there's so many people out there that would kill to have the things that you have the luxury of having. And it's just, it upsets me to see people burn jerseys like that. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, whether, in our case, our team fails us once again, or in the Islanders case, your star player's leaving. It's disrespectful either way to me.
If you're liking what you're hearing and seeing, I'm actually not right now. Not the just the content wise. This isn't what we were expecting to be talking about this week, frankly. But if you're liking the discussion, at least make sure you follow us on your favorite social media networks and on iHeartRadio as well. We are in podcast version, so find us there. We really appreciate all the feedback that we are getting. Moving along, it's the off season already. It's time to start thinking about next year. If you're Kyle Dubas, put on your GM hat now. We're going to do a bit of a lightning round with, we're going to talk names and staying or going and the price. So we'll just do a show of hands. If you are Kyle Dubas, you are bringing Zach Hyman back. Okay. Are you bringing Zach Hyman back for $5 million?
I'd do $5 million if it's a short-term deal. I wouldn't give him $5 million at any more than 3 or 4 years, I think.
Peter?
Yeah, to me, $5 million seems like a steep price. He's 29. He's not going to get any younger. Dealt with a few injuries already. For me, my sweet spot would be $4 to $4.5 million. I think that would be extremely reasonable if he signed maybe a 5 or 6 year deal, if he's looking for that kind of term. It's still a contract that can be moved later on if, he does start to decline and they need to move on from him, but that would be my ideal scenario for Hyman.
Yeah. And it sounds like there's teams willing to overpay. The talk is $6 million is coming from the Oilers, which, well, they've signed other players to really bad deals, Koskinen. And so maybe they will. I don't know. But that's unfortunate. We all love Zach. We've made no bones about that. But when they are this tight on the budget, they cannot afford to overpay anybody at this point.
Yeah. And I think with Dubas and Pridham, knowing the ins and outs of the contract or the CBA, they're going to do their due diligence and not overspend any needless kind of contract. So,
yeah. All right. Kyle Dubas, that's who we're joined by here today. So raise your hand if you are going to make a run to bring back Nick Foligno.
I'm going to go halfway.
All right. So Nick is a bit older. What I'm going to say is I loved everything Nick said, but he didn't show up on the ice. And I'm a little bit, you guys know that I like Foligno and the family. But when he left that one game and he said that there was a nagging injury from before, I was like, wait, did you give up a first round draft pick for an injured player? And I feel like there should have been some more due diligence or more disclosure on what these nagging injuries were. Because when the guy, that was not the Nick Foligno in these playoffs that we saw last year's playoffs. So, yeah, I would bring him back, but it would have to be at a super hometown deal and a short-term deal as well. But I think Columbus will probably get that. Peter, how much would you be paying him?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be going more than 2, max 3 million. I even think 3 is like overshooting it, maybe 2.5. But like you said, he was dealing with a nagging injury and he had 7 days to heal up, rest up, to try and get back as soon as his quarantine was done when the Leafs, got back on the ice and he was able to come back. So I think if we got the Nick Foligno in the first 4 games that we saw him and not the inconsistent, slow efforts, injuries down the stretch and the playoffs, absolutely I'd bring him back, but it's still up in the air and I don't know if Kyle Dubas is willing to take that kind of risk, but if he is healthy, why not?
Alex? Pretty much exactly what Peter said. I'm not giving him any more than probably 2.5 million. I saw Nick Foligno getting a lot of hate on Twitter and I didn't necessarily agree with it because I was saying to a couple of my fellow buddies and fans that Kyle Dubas has made some great trades and he's made some awful trades that were great in hindsight. And I think the Foligno trade was one of them. I think best case scenario, if the Leafs got the best version of Foligno possible, imagine they went on a deep playoff run and he ended up being that grizzled vet on the third line, hyping up the team, throwing his body every shift, playing fully healthy. I think if you can get that version of Nick Foligno at a cheap price, then you take it. But I can't see him coming back either way. I think he's got a life in Columbus. His family's comfortable in Columbus, and I think they're just a better spot for him right now. So I can't see him coming back. But if they wanted to bring him back, and if there was interest on his end in coming back, I'd do it, but not for more than probably 2.5.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's got two homes. He summers in Sudbury, Ontario, and we saw his love for the Leafs. It was immediate. I don't think he's ever not loved the Leafs when you see that. But yeah, he also saw the bad side of the Leafs, of the Leaf Nation. He seemed more tapped in with the Leaf Nation than any other player, and he saw the dark side for sure. So, and he's loved in Columbus. Okay, keeping your GM hats on, Frederik Andersen, do you bring him back? Okay, I'm the only one, and I'm going to put the caveat on this. I'm going to bring him back on a show me 1-year deal for about no more than 1.5, 2, because he's comfortable with Jack Campbell. To me, I think Leafs Nation, the Leafs franchise owe him that year because he was injured. He came to this franchise when it was dead, rock bottom, no wheels at all going on with it. And he came and he signed a 5-year deal to be with this team. He also pulls at my heartstrings. I love Freddie. He's good friends with lots of the team. I think he gets a show me deal, and he continues to be the mentor for Jack Campbell. So, Peter, can I get any wheels on that one at all?
I do agree with you. I mean, yeah, given what he's done to this organization, the fact that he, over the past 4 or 5 years, he's been one of the top, or one of the busiest goalies. I'm not going to say top, but one of the busiest goalies alongside Connor Hellebuck. But I think you want to try, knowing there, again, if it's 1.5, 2 million, I understand that. I don't think he would settle anything less than what he's making right now. But if you're the Maple Leafs, you have to consider going out and maybe trying to get someone like maybe Chris Driedger, who's on a cheaper deal. Maybe try and get him. I know some people in Leafs Nation really want to see James Reimer back. I don't know specifically, but with the way that Alex Nedeljkovic has been playing, he's probably going to be the starter for the Hurricanes going from here on out. So some options in the backup goaltending market that you can try and get. But if it is at that price, I would probably take on Andersen just for 1 more year.
Alex?
I pretty much exactly what you and Peter said. I mean, I know I wouldn't like to have seen Freddie Andersen's tenure in Toronto end the way that it did this year with an injury-riddled season where he lost his job. My only concern is I don't know if Freddie Andersen would be interested in a 1-year prove me deal. I think that would benefit the Leafs a lot, but Freddie Andersen, before this year, he's been a pretty consistent starting goalie who can handle a pretty heavy workload. And I don't know. I almost wonder if there'd be interest from teams where Freddie Andersen would be able to guarantee. I don't know about guarantee, but at least be comfortable with the fact that he might be able to get some more starts on a regular basis, like say Edmonton. Honestly, who knows if Mike Smith's coming back, but they don't exactly have a rock solid exclamation point in the goal crease there. So I don't know. I would bring Freddie Andersen back. But at this point, based on what happened this season, I think the Leafs will be moving forward with Jack Campbell as their starting goalie because, his performance this season is just, it's been incredible. And you can't really take that away from him and make him a backup goalie effective immediately. My dream tandem personally heading into next season, I would love to see the Leafs take a splash on Peter Mrazek. I think a Mrazek-Campbell tandem would be incredible. But again, that's pretty far to speculate on from now on. So to answer your question, I would bring him back on that deal, like you said, but I don't know if Freddie Andersen would be interested in that.
That's true. And I guess that's up to his agent to shop it around. I can't see a GM that could face a fan base and offer a guy that had the kind of year that he did and pay him more than $5 million. That would be a tough sell in any location, in my view, which is why I think maybe he comes back to Toronto in the mentorship role and tries to get his numbers up and see where he goes after that.
Let's not forget about Seattle too. They're going to be looking for a goalie.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah. There's the other factor as well. I thought that was Carey Price. A couple of months ago, everyone was like, send Price to Seattle.
Oh, geez.
All right, we're keeping our GM hats on as we talk about what the Leafs are doing going forward in this offseason. We weren't expecting to be here so quick. This is the Hockey Writers, and make sure you tune in on your favorite social media and podcast networks and like and subscribe this YouTube channel. Wayne Simmonds. We love the Wayne train when he got to town. $1.5 million 1-year deal that is now up. The Wayne Simmonds that started the season, I'd be happy to pay $1.5 million 1 year to go. After his injury, 6 weeks out, he never really came back in that same kind of Wayne view. If he wants to come back for a 1-year league minimum, okay, I'd do that. So I'm going with that with my deal. Anyone else with me on that deal? You guys are both. You're both.
I'll join you on this one. I'll join you in the sense that pretty much in the sense of what you said right there. If he wants to come back at less than what he made this year, the most I'd give him is probably $1 million. But if he wants to come back at a cheap price, I wouldn't have any problem taking him back. The passion was clearly there with him. He clearly loved being in Toronto, and he clearly I enjoyed having a guy like that to answer the bell and stick up for his players, which was nice. Obviously, we saw a little more of that before his injury, but yeah, I mean, I didn't really dislike the Wayne train this year. I thought he was invisible in the playoffs, as most people probably thought as well. And after his injury, like you said, Kevin, he wasn't really the same. But if we got to get guys who want to play in Toronto, and if Wayne Simmonds is one of those guys and he's willing to take a hometown discount, whatever, bring him back. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Peter, would you pay anything more than $1 million or 1.5 that he was getting this year?
No, I mean, Alex nailed everything on the head right there. And I came out with an article about certain players to try and bring in with killer instinct. That I mentioned one that could be on a fourth line role that Wayne Simmonds mostly saw this time was Andrew Cogliano, another hometown boy. I don't know if you try to squeak both him and Cogliano in, maybe replace Cogliano with Thornton. High energy guy, could go in on the forecheck, drop the gloves every now and then. We saw how aggressive he can be. So if it's both Cogliano and Simmonds at one, more specifically in this case, Wayne Simmonds, I'd probably still take him at that price.
Jason Spezza has been with the Maple Leafs for a couple of years now on a league minimum. And we're all on a league minimum. If he wants to come back for that league minimum, he can stay. Excellent. Not only great on the ice, he put up some pretty good numbers this year, surprising numbers actually, but I think it's more what he does off the ice. You see him out there after practice working with players. He's the guy that started the Marlies collection because all the AHL players were going to be horribly underpaid this year and made sure that all those guys were paid what they needed. He's just the guy. So if he's coming back on a league minimum, keeping him, right?
Yeah.
Is there any reason why you would not keep Jason Spezza?
No.
So we're gonna move on to
Next
another
question.
I don't think there's anything left to be said here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's easy. This one's the hard one because we all love Jumbo Joe. He's got the beard is getting longer and the tooth is getting long as well. To me, I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. And I hate saying it, but I don't see him back in Toronto. I don't see him back on the ice actually. And in his exit interview, he said he needs to go and be a dad. He said he felt great, but he wasn't making any decisions right now. Right now, he just needs to go and be a dad. I liked that. And I think we're all happy as a hockey, not totally happy as a hockey community, because you would love guys like that to have a Stanley Cup and their name on that excellent trophy. But I don't see him back. Are you guys bringing him back in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Probably not. Just go for it, Peter.
No, I'll let you go, Alex. I'll let you.
Oh, yeah. Let Alex throw him under the bus. Join me under here.
No, I mean, I don't really have much to say. It was just, it sucked that this season didn't go the way it could have for Joe Thornton, because the way I see it, like a lot of the moves that the Leafs made this year, the potential rewards in the end could have been amazing. Like I kind of like the same way I said, imagine if the Leafs made that trade for Nick Foligno and it paid off in the best way it possibly could have. You could make the same argument for Joe Thornton. Imagine if he somehow channeled his inner 2005 version of him and he became a key contributor in the playoffs and he finally got to lift the Stanley Cup. That obviously didn't happen. And at this point, I mean, Jumbo's going to be 42 heading into next season. I don't think he's got his legs anymore. And I just feel like the Leafs are going to be more focused on filling in their bottom six with speed and youth as opposed to Thornton. So it was nice to bring him in for this year and kind of try and get him his Stanley Cup before he retired, but I don't see him coming back to Toronto next year, which is unfortunate because we all love him as a person and as what he did for the locker room. But yeah, as a player, I don't see him dressing for the Leafs next year.
Peter, I'm sure that echoes your thoughts.
Yeah, and Alex even touched up on this. His age really started to show in the playoffs. Made two really critical errors early on in the series, leading to turnovers and goals against. Just the speed wasn't there. And we saw like a slow, steady decline in his play. We saw it picked up before the playoffs, and it just really wasn't there. Again, you wanted to try and win it for him. It would have been great to see Thornton lift the cup as a Maple Leaf or get to that point or make a deep run. It's disappointing, but you know what? I no ill will towards him. It just wasn't there. I mean, I'm really happy that we got this opportunity to actually see Joe play as a Maple Leaf, something that many wanted this to happen for so long.
I hope that if he wants to coach, that he'll get into the Toronto system with the Marlies and go from there. Because he loves being at the rink. We've heard that over and over, and he's made it very clear. So hopefully there's a new career for him there. So we are keeping our GM hats on as we talk about the upcoming free agency and how the Leafs are going to deal with that. And Alex has favorite players, and they all seem to be named Alex. Alex Galchenyuk. We've raved about this guy for several times on the lounge, but awesome rebuild. I thought he looked great in the playoffs. I thought it was a mistake when he didn't play game one. I wanted him out there against Montreal. But he's going to cost a little bit more, in my view. So are you bringing Alex Galchenyuk back? Yes, I am. Am I paying more than $2 million? I'll let Alex go first on that one.
No, I don't think you're paying more than $2 million. And while I do agree that he might have the grounds to ask for more because this was one of his more productive seasons since since his time with Montreal. Actually, you could even say Arizona. I don't know that he's going to demand much more than what he's making this year. I mean, he's sure he could kind of use the whole pull with Toronto and say, yeah, I stepped up and I showed up for you guys in the playoffs when half your team didn't. But I don't think he's really did enough this year to warrant asking for more than $2 million. Now, having said that, I would love to see the Leafs bring back Alex Galchenyuk because if they were to do that, it would be the first time since he was a Montreal Canadian that he spent more than one season with a team. And I think that's maybe part of the reason why he hasn't really been able to get back to his 2016-17 form like he was with Montreal, because he just doesn't have time to get used to a certain system. He spent 1 year with Arizona. He spent half a season with Pittsburgh, half a season with Minnesota, half a season with Ottawa, and now half a season with Toronto. So I think the Leafs really probably did the most for him aside from Montreal, obviously, just in the sense that they actually sat down and showed him like, hey, we want you to become a better player. We want you to be a part of our team instead of just, oh yeah, well, you've had some success in the past. We'll try out on the fourth line. If it doesn't work, we'll just trade you for a seventh or something like that. So I think that if the Leafs show that kind of commitment towards them and say, hey, listen, we legitimately believe you can become a contributing factor to this team, we'll bring you back and we'll see what you can do for us. I think that would be enough drive to get him maybe not back to where he was in Montreal, but at the very least have him become a contributing middle six forward.
Peter, any other thoughts on that one before we wrap it up? I agree with Alex. I mean, you can try and do that. I'm going to lean over to the other side and be a little bit different. I think the Maple Leafs are going to try and maybe address someone and maybe trying to sign someone like Brandon Saad, who's coming off a 5-year or $5 million contract, doing well with Colorado right now. playoff performer. The Leafs have some cap space. If Zach Hyman chooses to walk, if Andersen chooses to walk, that frees up more space. You have some wiggle room to maybe try and keep Brandon Saad at most at what he's making right now. And you could probably fit him on the second line with alongside Tavares and Nylander. And I think that'll probably be a really good spot for them to try and not necessarily throw Alex Galchenyuk out of the picture. Maybe you can throw him in the third or fourth line role, but to improve that second line scoring, I think you have to look at Brandon Saad to try and sign him there.
All right. That's it. We will take our Kyle Dubas hat off. We know he's got a lot of work to do in this off season, and we look forward to talking about it here on the Maple Leaf Lounge. We talked about social media a little bit earlier on in the show, so I don't think we need to hit it up anymore. It was just a little bit too vicious for me after a while. I actually stopped. The only thing that I did like is when you're a Leafs fan, there's always next year. And on that note, I will say for those that are not wanting their Leaf jerseys anymore, I have a place for them. And my two colleagues have blank walls behind them that they have a place for them. So feel free to bring them to the Maple Leafs Lounge, and we will proudly display them for you and with love. So for all of us here at the Hockey Writers and in the Maple Leafs Lounge, thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you next week.